Hey guys, it's my favorite Arrow, Season 6, Episode 6, Promise Kept, and I was looking forward to this episode, but like I said, I was a little let down. Well, actually not a little let down. I was very let down, actually, by some of the reveals last week, i.e. Vigilante being some dude that we really don't have any connection with, and also the whole thing with Joe, I just didn't really care. And this episode, for me, I did think was an improvement. I definitely will say that. Mostly because it was a lot more Slade heavy. Not that the last one wasn't, but there was a lot of stuff going on Vigilante. The Slade stuff I thought was really good here. I actually really do like what we got with Slade. But again, it just kind of made me wish this was like one big episode, because I think if this was one episode, it would have stood out a lot more. But let's just get into this episode because I do want to talk about it. So we start off right where the last episode left off. We see Slade. He tells Kane that he heard he was in trouble, but Kane doesn't believe him. He draws a gun on him. He asks Nylander if he should kill Slade, and Slade offers to join Kane, and he says that he will join anyone who gets in the way of talking to him, and figures that he has nothing left to lose, and tells Kane to make a decision. After a moment, Kane lowers his gun. He wonders if he can trust him, and Slade says that Kane's mother named him something different to keep them apart, and Kane agrees to catch up to him. So we then cut to 7 years ago in ASIS medical ward, and he wakes up after a mission. He finds Joe at his bedside, and he explains that an evac found Joe washed up, barely muttering Oliver's name, and asks who Oliver is. And Slade remembers fighting Oliver and being stabbed through the eye, and tells Joe that Oliver owed him a debt. And Joe figures that Slade would come back, and Slade tells him that he'll never leave him again, and the two of them then hug. And this is a good scene, and I thought the scenes between Slade and Joe were a lot stronger. Like I said last week, I did not really get the point of what they were trying to set up, why we got those flashbacks. Here, I thought they were a lot stronger. Here, I thought they actually served a lot more context, and I definitely really did enjoy that. But once again, my main problem with this episode is that it wasn't a standalone. I think, once again, this episode should have just been Slade and, Slade's backstory with Oliver in the background, and basically get the rest of the cast to take a back seat and give them a bit of a break. Now, I understand there's a lot of contractual obligations and things like that, but I really didn't see the point of having the rest of Team Arrow in this episode. I understand that Diggle's the Arrow now, which I was happy that they pay a little bit more, context to that in this episode, but I just felt like it didn't really have a place here. We see Diggle, Wild Dog, and Mr. Terrific. They move in on men robbing a warehouse. The other two men report that the thieves killed 2 security guards, and the heroes move in, and Diggle draws a bid on their leader. He can't shoot. The leader tosses a gas grenade down. He orders the others to fall back, and at the bunker, Felicity confirms that the thieves were after a military-grade 3D printer, and Dinah then arrives and says that the CCPD has heard gossip of a new player named Dragon. Diggle tells everyone to get some rest, and they'll look at it fresh in the morning, and he looks at his shaking hand. So it's clear that he definitely still does have the tremors, even though he's told Dinah that it's gone away. You can definitely sense that the tremors are very much still present, and Kane tells Slade that he bought a bottle of Slade's favorite scotch. He pours 2 drinks. Slade asks what kind of operation Kane plans to run with the Jackals, and Kane merely says that it's a resignment of resources. So basically, Diggle returns home. Lila greets him. They kiss, and this is the first time we've seen Lila in a very long time. We haven't seen Lila in an episode for God knows how long, but it was cool to see her again. They kiss, and Lila says that Diggle being Green Arrow suits him. He says he'll clean up before joining her in bed, and once Lila goes, Diggle takes some of the drugs from his hidden stash. He realizes he's running low, places a call with his supplier, and once again, I know how these shows go. I know he's gonna get addicted eventually, and I'm definitely not for this plot. I don't think it's the right direction to take him in, and if that's the reason why Diggle is dethroned as Green Arrow, it's just really dumb. I don't know why they're rushing this. I think, honestly, it's not the way to take it in. If it isn't, then really, that's really cool, but I just fear that the direction of this storyline is about to seriously decline very quickly. So Nylander then shows Slade around. Slade asks about their job. The former contract tells him that it's actually none of his business if Kane didn't tell him. And once he leaves, Oliver calls to Slade from the shadows. He demands to know what's going on, and he warns that Kane is very dangerous and he can't trust him, and Slade tells him to go home before he finds himself in trouble that he can't get out of it. And Oliver says that he can't walk away from it and asks if Slade can, and later he's arming up with the other Jackals when Kane comes in, says that some of their Semtex was comprised by he's going to steal steal more from the Keynesian army. He asks if Slade will show them how to do it. Slade goes to get some gear, and as he does, Slade then radios Oliver what's going on, tells him to find the receiver for the explosive, and we then come back to 6 years ago where Slade is then training Joe. He finally takes him down, and as they go again, he gets out a bottle of scotch, gives it to Slade as a one-year gift, and Slade remembers drinking on the island with Oliver and Shadow, and Joe then shows him the prototype, the Deathstroke uniform, says it'll be ready in a month, and we realize this is before Slade became Deathstroke, which I thought was actually really cool, but Slade says it's a distraction and return to training. Slade remembers training Oliver on Lian Yu. He hits Joe's hand by accident. Joe curses, says that they're done with training. Slade then hallucinates Shadow there, saying that Slade tries to forget him, and she says that he can't because he made her a promise, and then it disappears. So we then go back to the present where Diggle goes to the cellar, and the boss Ricardo Diaz comes out and introduces himself, and he hears that Diggle is claiming that he's a bouncer and says that until they get FDA approval, they have to be careful with the rollout. He tells the seller to hook Diggle up and then leaves, and the Jackals prepare to intercept the Keynesian army. Kane gives Slade the Deathstroke armor. As Slade does it, the army truck goes by, hits the tire shredder, and once it grinds to a halt, Deathstroke and the other Jackals take out the soldiers. Kane says that they don't leave witnesses and kills one soldier, so Oliver searches the Jackal's HQ. He takes out 2 guards. He finds a set of plans, unaware that another guard is actually watching him, and at the bunker, Felicity reports that they got a security alert at Palmer Tech. Biodivision, when the team gets there, the thieves then open fire on them. The SUV with the stolen items drives off. Diggle fires a crossbow line through the rear windshield, hitting the brakes. Ricardo gets out and opens fire, hitting Diggle when he freezes up, and by the time Wild Dog arrives, Ricardo gets in the SUV and makes good his escape. Again, I just didn't really care that much about this plot line. We see back in the bunker, Felicity's running facial recognition on Diggle's body cam, identifies Richard as Dragon. He was doing life without parole, but the state Supreme Court overruled the conviction, and Diggle says the Dragon is running a new crew. Curtis reports that the 3D printer is making reactionware, and using them, Dragon can make designer drugs cheaply. Diggle says that they're shutting it down. Dinah asks him if anything's wrong, and their leader merely says the first time in a while that a perp got the drop on him. So I just didn't really care for this storyline, honestly. But back at the HQ, Slade asks why the Jackals need the explosives, and Kane points out that Slade missed a kill shot at the hijacking and says that the men don't really trust Slade, but he actually does. And again, this is a very compelling conflict here. Nylander brings him in. Kane tells Slade it's time for him to collect on the debt that Oliver owes him, and you don't know exactly what he's going to do here. So we go back to 5 years ago where Shadow keeps tormenting Slade, saying that he's lying to himself, and I like the way that Shadow acts as like a conscience for Slade. I thought that was actually really cool. She accused Slade of knowing that Oliver's still alive but does nothing. She demands that he give her what he promised. Slade finally yells at nothing. He insists that Oliver's dead, just as a TV newscast reports that Oliver was found on Lian Yu. And Slade insists that he keeps his promises. Shadow kisses him, she disappears, and Slade turns to the Deathstroke armor. When an agent asks if he's okay, he breaks his arm, grabs a sword to fight the others, and again, I thought this was a good contrast between the Slade of today and the Slade of then. The Slade of today is a lot more heroic. He's very much an old man, he's beaten down, and he's reflecting on the life that he could have had, while the Slade of then was just a hard, cold, calculated killer, and I really did like the juxtaposition throughout this episode. So Diggle then tells Lyle about his tremors and says that he used an experimental steroid to overcome his problem. And I like that he was honest with her here. We don't have a bunch of episodes of him hiding this from her. I feel like, they could have easily done that, but I like that he just came forward and told her, look, I do have a problem here, and now he needs her help, and asks if Argus is working on anything that can help his problems, and he explains the supplier is killing people, and Lila figures that she should be grateful for what he did, and she realizes that Diggle is still using the drug, and says that he knows that's wrong, but couldn't let Oliver down, and you can tell that he's doing whatever he can to, try to, maintain this identity as the Green Arrow and protect Oliver. And Diggle says that once Argus has a solution, he'll get Dragon off the streets, and furious she walks off. So you can tell she's not really happy about this, which is understandable. I mean, this is very dangerous what Diggle's getting himself into. He could very well get addicted to this, and it could make things even worse. So Normally, I'd be like, oh, why is Lila being so unreasonable? Why is she being so bitchy? But this, I really did understand. I can understand where Lila's coming from. I can understand why she's upset with Diggle. This is a big health risk, and I can totally understand why she's upset about that. So, Slade puts his sword to Oliver's eye, and this scene was incredible. Now, you know he's not going to kill Oliver. You know that. I mean, these two, they've cemented a partnership. We've seen that Slade has really turned himself around, so you know he's not going to kill him, and he reminds him of the promise that he made to him. Oliver tells him that he's not that person anymore. Slade says he's a father and won't break his promise to his son. And it's a really well done scene because even though Slade has turned himself around, he's not that cold-blooded vigilante anymore. You can see that he is being very influenced by his son. His son seems to have control over him. When Oliver says that he has a son, Cain promises to make him suffer too, and Slade moves behind Oliver and prepares to strike, and he cuts Oliver free. And that was a fantastic moment because you knew Oliver wasn't going to die, and I love that Slade, continued that, good persona that he's really had, and Oliver then knocks Cain out. He tells Slade that they have to go, so they run up against the jackals, they dive out a window, and as they run off, Cain gets there, tells Nylander that Slade will try to stop them at the op, and he'll kill him, and Oliver tells Slade the jackals are attacking the water supply, killing off half the country. He asks if Slade wants them to stop him. Slade reminds him that he spared his life, and admits that he was tempted because he would have done anything to stay with Cain. However, when Oliver mentioned William, he realized that Cain wasn't actually his son. He worries that there's no way to stop Cain except killing him, and when Oliver insists that Cain will listen to him, Slade says he broke his promise to stay with Joe. The Mirakuru came back, and Joe is trying to emulate what Slade became on it, which I really like seeing it. It makes a lot of sense, too, obviously, because we know what the Mirakuru did to Slade, so Joe's trying to echo that and basically just show that he can be as powerful, and he doesn't know how to redeem Cain, and Oliver says that Cain needs to see who his father is now. So we go back to 6 years ago. Cain goes to the training room. He finds the agents dead. A bloody Slade steps out of the shadows, says they were trying to stop him from keeping his promise. He disarms Joe and tells him to stay out of his way, and knocks him unconscious, and we then go back to the present, where Diggle tells the team that he got Dragon's location from a contact and says to suit up. So Dragon's looking at the steroids when he hears Black Canary scream outside. He orders everyone to evacuate. The team breaks in. Dragon then knocks over a barrel of camels and set it on fire. Diggle sees a box of the steroid and hesitates, and the fire consumes the steroids completely, and after a moment Diggle has no choice but to leave with the others just as the lab explodes. The jackals arrive at the water supply. They set the charges. Nylander offers Cain the trigger, but Cain says that he hired him to do it and is staying for the view. So once the others leave, Cain calls to Shade and says it's time for an honest talk, and outside Oliver is taking on the jackals. Slade tries to get through to Joe, saying that Oliver forgave him for far worse. He says it's time to bring it to an end, but Cain says that it's just the beginning and attacks him. So he's not looking to let bygones be bygones here. He's not looking for any sort of, redeemable type meaning that they're gonna have. He's showing no mercy. So they fight their way outside. Slade insists that Joe saw was the Mirakuru, and Cain tells him he saw him kill before the Mirakuru at Milford Sound. He saw what Slade did to the Chinese spy and tells his father he has a brother, Grant, and their mother kept him out of the business. Now, this is something that we already knew. We've already met Grant in Star City, 2040 whatever in that episode in Legends Tomorrow. We've already seen him, so this is not really much of a shock to us. However, Cain slit his throat 6 months after Milford Sound because he just wanted to be just like Deathstroke, and he wants to do whatever he can to prevent that from happening. So Slade says he's not Deathstroke anymore. Cain says he's not his father either, and Oliver arrives. He fires a warning shot, ordering Cain to surrender. Slade tells Oliver not to shoot. Cain says he wishes Slade had stayed dead before tossing down a flashbang to cover his escape, and later Oliver speaks with the warden, confirms the jackals are in custody. Slade's looking at a photo of himself and Joe and says that Joe followed in his path. He tells Oliver it's time to go home while he keeps searching for both of his sons. He tells Oliver that he won't ask him for help again because he won't put him or William at risk. He thanks Oliver and then leaves. So basically, he's going to continue looking for his son, seeing if he can stop this from happening. I doubt that's the last we're going to see of him. The show's not just going to get rid of Manu Bennett. He's too talented for the show to just get rid of, and it was cool to see Slade here. This was a very murky, kind of confusing arc, but I did think it was worth it just to see Manu Bennett again. I did think that definitely was very well done. So Diggle returns home. Lila says she saw a report on the lab explosion. She asks if Diggle meant to destroy the drugs, and he admits that he was going to take as much as he could carry, and he apologized for being a hypocrite. Lila tells him to be safe, and as they kiss, their son comes in. Diggle hugs him. He then tells Lila he has to apologize and explain to his teammates, and William and Felicity were then playing video games. Oliver returns to the apartment. Oliver hugs his son, says that his friend found his son, and William goes to show Oliver his science project. Oliver tells Felicity that he's glad she's there, and after they kiss, Oliver tells her that he made the right decision to not be Arrow, and I think this is, very much shown Oliver even more that not being the Arrow has really made things better between him and William, because obviously Slade becoming Deathstroke really did ruin him and his son's relationship, and obviously Oliver doesn't want that to have some sort of effect on him and William's relationship, and I did think that was a very strong point here. So Oliver goes to the roof with William. Felicity gets a call from Diggle to come to the bunker, and at the bunker he tells Renee, Dinah, and Curtis what happened. He apologized to Renee for getting shot at the bridge because of his hesitation. He asks them to forgive him. Renee assures him that Diggle is still ahead of him, saving his life versus putting it at risk, and Curtis points out that he could not have worked on a cure. Diggle asks to begin the test in the morning, and once Renee and Curtis leave, Dinah says that she's waiting to make sure that Diggle's okay. He apologizes for lying to her, promises that there will be no more secrets between them. She agrees and then leaves, holding the matchbox that Vincent gave her. So Diggle goes over to the Green Arrow suit, looks at his shaking hand. We realize that he definitely does still have the tremors, and that is the way this episode ends. So like I said, guys, I did think this was an improvement over the last episode for sure. It was a lot more interesting, was a little bit more focused, and the plot wasn't as underwhelming, and it wasn't as frustrating as it was in the last episode. But again, I will say that I do think this would have been a lot stronger if it was just a one-off and we had one episode with Slade. There really was nothing here that told me that this needed to be split into two parts. I think you could have easily had the first half where Slade thinks that his son is dead, and then the second half be like this, or you could have just done a really long extended episode. I know they obviously can't do that because of time limit and things like that, but I think this would have been the time. You could have done 2 episodes of Arrow here. Take a break from Supernatural for a week and just do 2 hours of Arrow. I think this would have been the episode to do it, and it would have made the most sense to do that here. I did think that there was some really strong stuff here, particularly with Oliver. What Oliver realized in this is how important it is to be a father first and be a vigilante second, and that's something that Slade never really knew how to do. Oliver has found a way to strike that balance between being the mayor and being a father, and I think he's done that very well. But he's realized from this experience with Slade that it doesn't always work out that way, and that when you are a vigilante, there's a lot of things you have to sacrifice, and one of those things for Slade was his relationship with his son. It very much was jeopardized because of that, and now we are in a world where Kane is ashamed of his father and he wants nothing to do with his father, and even though Slade is telling him, I'm not that person anymore, and he's trying to get back that lost time with Kane, he's just no longer interested. A lot of what Slade did, it obviously had a great impact on Kane, and he's just not going to take back all that lost time. You can see that Slade, he wants to, but Kane's just not ready for it. And I really did love those scenes between Kane and Slade. You can see it really is heartbreaking for Slade because you want him to become a father. You want him to get those years back with Kane. You want him to have that nice life, but he just can't. I mean, there's just been too much that he's done in his life. There's been too many things that he promised to Kane that he broke, and now he can't ever fix it. And it really is unfortunate. I did think that Kane's motivation was just a little bit murky. At one point, I thought that he wanted Slade to go back to being Deathstroke, and then on the other hand, it seemed like he didn't. So that was definitely a bit confusing to me. I thought the flashbacks made a lot more context here. You could tell the juxtaposition of how Slade was now and how he was then, and I did think that, like I said, was very strong as well. And Manu Bennett, despite, like I said, a lot of confusing stuff, he really did sell everything in this episode. He gave it his all. He always does a great job as Slade Wilson, and I know they just recently introduced Slade in the Justice League, spoiler alert, but that guy, whoever's playing him, he's not going to be as dynamic as Manu Bennett is, and that's a fact. I don't think we're ever going to get a Slade Wilson that is dynamic, that is as spot on, that is as compelling, that is as interesting as Manu Bennett's portrayal. I think that's the best portrayal we're going to get. I think that is going to be, the definitive portrayal of Slade Wilson. I think it's always kind of going to be that way. I think we're definitely going to see Slade again, but he's realizing that, you know, Oliver's trying to take a break and Oliver's trying to move on from being the Green Arrow, and he wants him to have a good time with William. He wants him to be a good father to him, and he doesn't want William to turn out like Joe. So I really did love seeing that. I thought that was very strong here. Like I said, really my biggest problem with this episode is everything else going on with Team Arrow. While interesting, I didn't really feel like had a place in this episode. Now, I did like that we got more into Diggle being the Green Arrow and him, you know, having his drug problems and him trying to control his tremors, and I like that he didn't keep anything from Team Arrow. Like, he's not hiding this from them. He's telling them that he's going to get the help. He's going to do what he can to keep it under wraps. He's not completely hiding it, and I definitely did like seeing that here. But you can tell his tremors is a significant problem, and to me, it seems like the only reason they're doing this is so this is short-lived and that Oliver can eventually come back as the Arrow, which I don't understand how that's going to happen, how Oliver's going to be the Green Arrow again, especially after episodes like this. I don't really get why he would ever decide to be the Green Arrow again, but we'll have to see the way that really does turn out. Like I said, guys, I did overall enjoy this episode. I thought this was definitely stronger than the last one. There's still, thank God there wasn't Watson in this episode. I really have not been a fan of the character of Samantha. I think she's just been very annoying, and I just really have not been a fan of her at all, honestly. I think she's just been very one-note and very lacking, and she hasn't really added anything to the show except just overcomplicate things, so I was glad to see that she wasn't in this episode. Unfortunately, she will be coming back next week, and I'm just not at all interested, but we'll have to see the way that does play out. Overall, guys, like I said, I definitely did enjoy this episode. I am going to give Arrow Season 6, Episode 6, Promises Kept, a B. So overall, guys, in this episode of Arrow, let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Love your thoughts. And like I said, I did enjoy this two-part arc overall. I just thought that it would work better as a one-off, but again, that's just kind of how I feel. It might be different from how you guys feel, but that's my review. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.